Before we start, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It was early evening in Phoenix, the backyard pulsing with music and conversation as string lights blinked lazily above. Kids screamed near the inflatable pool. Adults sipped beer round the patio table, and the air smelled of barbecue and sunscreen. And yet, all I could see was absence. Tessa, my wife of 11 years, was gone. So was Caleb, my brother, gone for 22 minutes. I knew because I checked my watch when I saw them disappear round the corner off the house, claiming they were going to grab the drink cooler from the garage, except no cooler had come back. I set my paper plate down, jaw tightening, when Tessa finally reappeared through the side gate, alone, walking like nothing had happened. My legs moved on instinct. I met her halfway between the patio and the back fence where the crowd thinned. I grabbed her elbow lightly but firmly. "Tessa," I said, "where the hell were you?" She blinked again. Her face was blank, too blank like a mask had just been lowered in place. "Bathroom," she said smoothly. "You want details or you want to just trust your wife knows how to pee?" "Don't play that with me," I hissed. "You left with Caleb. You weren't in the house. You came from the side gate. Don't insult me with bathroom." She stepped in close, voice low, but laced with venom. "Oh, so now you're counting my steps. What's next, Ethan? You going to put a tracker on my car?" "I didn't imagine you sneaking off with my brother," I said, jaw tight. "I saw both of you disappear behind the garage." "What's going on, Tessa?" She gave a breathy, humorless laugh and shook her head. "You've always had this thing, you know, that twitchy, pathetic suspicion. It's exhausting, and you've always had this thing." I fired back, stepping in closer. "Where you flirt like a teenager and lie like a politician." Her smile vanished. "You're ruining your daughter's birthday," she said sharply. "No, you did," I snapped. "The second you walk it off with him." Tessa stared at me, her lips pressed into a thin line. "You're spiraling. There's nothing between me and Caleb. You want to swear on that?" I asked. "Right here." "Swear on Lena." A flicker of hesitation crossed her face. Just half a second, but I caught it. Then she smiled, calm, cold, and lethal. "You don't get to use our daughter as some moral high ground. You want to keep pushing? Let's go find Caleb and start yelling in front of your whole family. Your co-workers, Lena's friends. That what you want?" I stared at her. My blood felt like it was vibrating in my veins. "No," I said quietly. "That's not what I want." "Then act like a man," she spat. "Not a jealous boy." She turned on her heel and walked back toward the crowd, her laugh slipping easily back into the night air. I stood there a moment longer, just beyond the reach of the string lights. My chest burnt. "My name is Ethan Miller. I'm 38. I run logistics for a regional trucking company. I come home every night, cook 3 nights a week, and pack my daughter's school lunch every morning. I believed in marriage. I believed in her. But tonight, something cracked open behind my ribs, and I wasn't sure what was going to spill out." The party kept breathing around me like nothing had happened. Kids squealing by the water table, uncles joking near the smoker, neighbors catching up about interest rates and lawnmowers. But I wasn't in it. I was stuck in the far corner of our backyard, clutching a cup of watered-down lemonade, and watching Caleb like a hawk. He stood on the other side of the yard, red Solo cup in hand, laughing at something Tessa just said. She had one hand on his arm. It wasn't a long touch, maybe a second or two, but it was casual, too casual, familiar in a way that shouldn't exist between my wife and my brother. "Not like that." I couldn't hear the words from this far, but I could read the body language, and theirs was fluent in something I'd never learned. "She's got that laugh again," came a voice beside me. I turned. Sandra, our next-door neighbor, mid for south, smart, calm, widowed, young. Known Lena since she was a toddler, and always brought over extra cookies whenever she baked too much. She nodded toward Lena, who was now sitting at the patio table, swinging her legs, and chatting animatedly with Sandra's teenage son, Mason. "She's had a rough year," Sandra added gently, "but she looks happy tonight. That's something, right?" I followed her gaze. Lena's face was glowing in the fairy lights, animated and carefree in a way I hadn't seen for weeks, maybe months. Her laugh cracked open something inside me. "Yeah," I murmured. "She does." Sandra gave me a warm, sideways look. "How are you holding up?" That was the kind of question you could only answer honestly if you weren't in the middle of a backyard party with ribs and cupcakes on the menu. So, I lied. "Good. Just tired." She didn't buy it, but she didn't press. "If you ever want help with anything, Lena's schedule, groceries, just someone to vent to, my door's open. You've been juggling a lot lately. I can see it." "Thanks," I said a little too fast. A few seconds passed. Then she patted my arm and stepped away, joining Lena at the table. I turned back just in time to catch Caleb looking over at me. He smiled, raised his cup like it was a toast, and I swear there was something in his eyes. That gleam, that smug little tilt of the head he used to give when he beat me at video games or snicked the last slice of pizza growing up. Except this wasn't a game, and it wasn't pizza. I walked over to the cooler and grabbed a fresh drink just for the motion. I didn't even care what I pulled out. My hand was shaking slightly. I crouched near the ice chest, trying to focus on the cool bite of air on my wrist, the sharp hiss of the can opening. Anything to stay grounded behind me. I could hear them again. Tessa and Caleb laughing. She said something in a mocking tone. He chuckled low to low. I stood up and turned around. They were closer now, standing by the grill, just inside the crowd's edge. Her head was tilted toward his, her ponytail swinging gently as she smiled. He whispered something. She laughed again. It was the kind of laugh she used to give me, the kind that made me fall for her before I even knew what falling looked like. I started walking toward them. No plan. No words in mind, just a boiling need to break that moment in half. But Lena's voice pulled me back. "Dad?" I turned. She was waving at me from the patio table, her grin wide. "Come take a picture with me and the cake." I swallowed the knot in my throat and nodded. "Be right there, sweetheart," I called, forcing the words through my teeth. When I looked back at Caleb and Tessa, they had already drifted apart like nothing had happened, like I was the one seeing ghosts. But I knew better, and as I made my way toward Lena, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes, something settled in my chest like cement. Whatever this was between them, it wasn't just in my head, and it wasn't going away. The next morning, I was standing in my parents' living room in Phoenix. The sun barely up, heat already pressing against the windows. Same beige couch, same framed family photos. Same place where Caleb and I used to wrestle on the carpet until Mom yelled at us to knock it off. Caleb was leaning against the doorway, arms crossed, looking way too relaxed for a man I hadn't slept thinking about. "What's this about?" he asked. "You showed up unannounced like the house was on fire." "I need the truth," I said. "Right now." He snorted and pushed off the frame. "About what?" "About you and my wife." That wiped the half smile off his face just for a second. Then it came back sharper. You serious? He said. You drove all the way over here for that. Don't do that. I snapped. Don't play dumb. Last night wasn't subtle. Caleb laughed slow and low. Man, you've always had a talent for seeing things that aren't there. I step closer. You disappear with her. You stand too close. You whisper. She laughs like she's 16 again. And you expect me to buy coincidence? He straightened, eyes hard now. You expect me to care about your imagination? My imagination? I said. Then look me in the eye and tell me nothing's going on. He held my stare too long. Then he shrugged. Even if there was, what would that say about you? That hit harder than I expected. What's that supposed to mean? I asked. It means, he said quietly, stepping closer. You've always been the safe one. Predictable, responsible. And Tessa, he smirked. She's not built for boring. My hands curled into fists. You're my brother and you're not entitled to loyalty just because Mom pushed us out of the same body. He shot back. You want to keep a woman like Tessa? You don't cage her. I never caged her, I said through my teeth. No, he said. You just assumed she'd stay. I lunged forward, stopping inches from his face. If you cross that line, what? He interrupted. You'll what? Tell Mom. He laughed again. Cruel this time. You've always been soft, Ethan. You think doing everything right makes you strong. It doesn't. You're wrong. I said strength isn't taking what doesn't belong to you. Caleb leaned in, his voice a whisper. If she wanted to belong to you, she would. The room felt smaller, hotter. I could hear my own pulse. I came here hoping you'd deny it, I said. Instead, you just told me exactly who you are. He shrugged again. And now you know. From the hallway, Mom's voice floated in. Everything okay in there? Yeah, Caleb called back. All good. I took a step back, chest tight. This isn't over. He smiled like he'd already won. It never is with you. I turned and walked out without another word. The door closing behind me with a final hollow thud. As I stood on the front porch, heat rising off the concrete, one truth settled deep in my bones. Whatever was happening between them, it wasn't an accident, and it wasn't going to stop on its own. It was Thursday afternoon. I'd just come home from work, my tie still loose around my neck, when I heard Lena calling from down the hall. Dad, I found something weird. I met her in the living room where she stood, holding a small silver flash drive between her fingers. Where do you get that? I asked. She shrugged. It was behind the couch cushions. I was vacuuming like you asked and it just kind of slipped out. I took it from her gently, turning it over in my hand. Not a bell, no markings, just a plain little memory stick. You open it, I asked. Nope. Figured it might be yours. Or Mom's. The word Mom's landed like a thud. Thanks, sweetheart, I said. Go finish your homework. All right. She nodded and skipped off down the hall, humming something soft under her breath. I walked into my office and shut the door. I didn't sit. I just stood there for a long second, staring at the computer like it might offer a warning. Then I plugged it in. The drive loaded with a soft click. One folder, one file, vid_to03 of. My finger hovered for a moment. Then I double-clicked. The screen blinked to life, shaky at first, like the camera had been propped up on something. Then the image steadied. It was Tessa. She sat on our bedroom floor, legs crossed, her face angled slightly away from the lens. Her makeup was minimal, hair pulled back. She looked real raw, like she'd just come back from a run or cried a little too hard. She didn't smile, didn't hesitate. I guess this is for me, she said quietly. Or for later. Or maybe for Caleb. I don't know. But I need to say it out loud. I didn't move. I crossed the line, she continued. With Caleb, it wasn't a mistake. I knew what I was doing. I wanted it. Her voice cracked a little. I don't regret it, she whispered. That's the worst part. He sees me in a way Ethan doesn't. He doesn't expect me to be anything. I can just be me. Messy, loud, wild. She pulled in a breath. And I don't feel guilty. Not really, because Ethan stopped seeing me a long time ago. He's sweet. He's good. But I was disappearing. I needed to feel alive again. She looked at the camera. Finally, her eyes dull. I told Ethan I was busy at work that week. But we were in Sedona, Caleb and me. It was a blur. Rooms, drinks, late nights. My mouth had gone dry. She closed her eyes. I don't think I love Ethan anymore, she said. I don't think I even care if this gets out. She reached for the camera then, and the screen went black. I stood there frozen. The air in the room felt heavier than I could handle. My pulse thudded in my ears. I stared at the screen, at the faint reflection of my own stunned face. Then I reached for my phone. My hands weren't shaking. Not anymore. I typed, "Don't come home." I saw the flash drive and hit send. 4 minutes later, the front door slammed open. Tessa came charging into the house. Her hair pulled back like she'd been in the middle of work or fury. "Where is it?" she shouted. I was still standing in Theophis' doorway, waiting. "You had no right," she snapped, eyes wide, breath heavy. "Where is it, Ethan?" I said nothing. She stormed past me, eyes wild, and yanked the flash drive from the USB port. Before I could speak, she hurled it across the room. Smash. It hit the hardwood and splintered into useless plastic. "There," she shouted, chest heaving. "That what you wanted? You want to ruin everything over one stupid file?" Still, I said nothing. I just looked at her, and that silence, that quiet stillness from me did something to her. She blinked. Her breathing slowed. She looked around, realizing just how far she'd gone. "You," she whispered, but the words died on her tongue. I stepped past her and picked up the broken pieces of the flash drive, dropped them gently in the trash. "I don't need proof anymore," I said quietly. "You just gave me all I needed." She opened her mouth, but I was already walking away. It was nearly 10 when I pulled into the gravel driveway of my parents' house, tires scrunching like dry bones. The porch light was on, casting a pale circle onto the steps. I didn't knock. I walked straight in like I used to when I was 16, sweaty from baseball, full of fire. Only this time, it wasn't sweat clinging to my skin. It was betrayal. Mom was in the kitchen washing something in the sink. Dad sat half asleep in the recliner. Baseball game, murmuring low on the TV. And Caleb. He was right there in the living room, feet propped on the coffee table, flipping through his phone like nothing in the world had weight. I didn't speak. Not at first. Caleb looked up, eyebrows raised. "Well, hey, look who. I know everything now," I said, voice calm. To calm. It cut through the room like a switchblade. Mom turned from the sink. Dad shifted in his chair. Caleb froze mid-sentence, phone still in hand. "You want to explain Sedona to them?" I asked. "Or should I?" The color drained from his face. "What are you talking about?" Mom asked, drying her hands. I didn't take my eyes off Caleb. They weren't working late. They were together. Tessa and him out of town a whole week. Mom's mouth parted. "That can't be." "It is," I said. She recorded it. Confessed everything. Said she didn't even feel guilty. Caleb stood slowly. "You need to calm down, man. Don't, I snapped. Don't call me man. Don't stand there like this is some misunderstanding. Ethan, Dad said carefully. This sounds like a private matter. Maybe. No, I said, turning to them. This isn't private. This is family. And if he has the guts to betray me, then he can face it where he lives. Caleb stepped forward. You're not going to come in here. And I watched the video. I shouted. She said she wanted you, that you made her feel alive. And you just stood there letting it happen. You weren't exactly holding her down, he fired back, eyes flaring. Enough, Mom yelled, stepping between us. This isn't how family treats each other. I stared at her. No, it's not. She blinked, thrown. Then Dad said quietly, Caleb deserves to be loved, too, son. It was like the floor dropped out. What? You to have always been different, he continued. You always so proper, so rigid. Maybe she needed something else. That doesn't make it right, but it's understandable. I stared at him, at Mom, at both of them. You're defending him. Caleb didn't speak, just stood there watching, not ashamed, not afraid, just waiting. I'm your son, I whispered. Mom's voice trembled. You both are. But that wasn't what I needed to hear. Something broke in me. A quiet final crack. I came here thinking maybe one of you would say what he did was wrong. But you can't even say that. You're hurt, Mom said, reaching for my arm. I stepped back. No, I'm done being hurt. No one stopped me as I turned and walked out the door. And that silence, that was the loudest thing they ever gave me. It was the kind of mourning that felt too still for what was about to happen. Overcast sky, courthouse steps washed in soft gray light, as if the world itself wanted to mute the noise. I sat on the bench outside the courtroom, Lena's backpack at my feet. She wasn't with me, of course. She was at Sandra's playing Uno and eating banana pancakes. I promised her we were just sorting paperwork. She didn't need to see what betrayal looked like in legal form. Tessa walked in 10 minutes late, heels clacking across the marble floor. She wore navy, always did when she wanted to look put together. Her hair curled at ends, not a strand out of place. It was war paint disguised as polish. She didn't look at me, just breezed past and into the courtroom like we were strangers. Caleb wasn't there. Figures. My attorney leaned in as we settled at our table. No witness, no physical evidence. We focus on Lena. Push hard for custody. Property split is standard unless you've got something in writing. I had a flash drive, I muttered. She smashed it. He gave me a tight apologetic smile. We can use that to show destruction of property, not infidelity. The bailiff called us in. The courtroom wasn't packed, just a few other people waiting their turn. A judge with kind eyes and a stacked docket. She didn't care about drama. She wanted facts. Tessa's lawyer went first, painting her as the stable parent who had sacrificed her career for motherhood and was now being financially cornered post-separation. I didn't react. Not when he called her the primary emotional caregiver. Not even when he said she'd be unfairly displaced if she didn't receive half the house. Then it was our turn. My lawyer stood calm and composed. Your Honor, we're not contesting her claim to half the house. What we are asking for is full physical custody of Lena. Mr. Miller has been the consistent provider. He's remained in the family home, maintained school routines, and has no history of instability. Ms. Miller left the household abruptly under contentious circumstances. The child has responded positively to her current environment. The judge nodded, scribbled notes. Is there an agreement on the property division? Tessa's lawyer answered before I could. We're requesting half the equity in the home. No further financial claims. I stared straight ahead. That was the deal. She didn't want custody. She didn't want the house. She just wanted the cash. And I didn't want her near Lena. Agreed. My lawyer said with a short recess and a few final statements. It was done. The judge's voice was level. Impartial. Primary custody awarded to Mr. Miller. Ms. Miller is granted visitation every other weekend, contingent on consistency. Property division will proceed as agreed. Home equity split evenly. A bang of the gavel. Just like that. Marriage dissolved. Family fractured. Future redirected outside. Tessa stopped me near the parking lot. Her voice was light, like she was commenting on the weather. You'll buy me out today. I nodded. Already called the bank. Loans approved. I'll sign this afternoon. She smirked. You always were efficient. I didn't respond. Later that day, I sat in a bank office. Fluorescent lights buzzing above as I signed the final loan documents. My hands didn't shake. The pen didn't stutter. I handed over every last dollar I had. Savings drained. Safety net gone. But Lena was with me. That was enough. I got home, opened the door, and looked around. Half the furniture was missing. Half the photos from the hallway gone. Empty spots on the wall. Quiet where her perfume used to linger. But Lena's shoe sware by the door. And that made it feel like home again. While we continue, subscribe so you don't miss the upcoming parts. The weeks after court moved like wet concrete. Slow, heavy, cold around the edges. Money was tight. I'd bought out Tessa's share of the house by draining everything we had saved. Emergency fund gone. Retirement. Just a faint idea. I was living check to check. Grinding double shifts when I could. Hauling spreadsheets home on weekends and eating toast for dinner more often than I'd like to admit. And Lena, she felt it. Not in words, but in the way she went quiet in the car rides to school. The way she picked at her dinner. The way she looked at me, eyes to grown for 10, and said nothing when she clearly wanted to ask. Why does Mom only call when it's convenient? Most nights I'd come home to silence. No music, no laughter, just the low hum of the fridge and Lena reading on the couch. Feet tucked under her. I'd kiss her head, ask how school was. She'd nod and say, fine. We both knew that meant not great. But neither of us pushed until the Thursday I came home to the smell of onions and rosemary floating down the hallway. I paused in the doorway. The lights in the kitchen were on. The table was set. Something was bubbling on the stove. And Lena was standing there beaming like it was Christmas. Next to her, Sandra, hair tied up, sleeves rolled, wooden spoon in hand like she'd always belonged here. I told you he'd be surprised, Sandra said, flashing a grin. I blinked. What's going on? We made stew, Lena said, rushing over. From scratch. Sandra brought all the groceries and showed me how to cut the carrots without slicing my thumb. I looked at Sandra. She shrugged. You mentioned in passing last week that things were rough. I figured maybe you two needed a break from toast and takeout. I tried to smile, but my throat was tight. You didn't have to do this. She tilted her head, wiping her hands on a towel. Sometimes people need what they didn't expect. I nodded slowly, swallowing the lump in my chest. Dinner was simple. Stew, warm bread. Lena's laughter bouncing between the walls for the first time in what felt like forever. I let myself relax, even just a little. After Lo went to bed, I stood in the kitchen with Sandra, helping rinse the last plate. You didn't have to do all this, I said again, quieter this time. She looked at me, soft but firm. You're not the only one who's been through loss, Ethan. You don't have Toto everything alone. Let people in sometimes. The sink gurgled, And for once, the silence between us didn't feel empty. It felt like breathing room. 1 year later, the air in the house had changed. It no longer clung to the walls like grief. The ache was still there sometimes in the quiet corners of the night, or when Lena looked too long at old photos. But the sharpness had dulled. The silence had softened. Something new had bloomed in its place. Not flashy or loud, just steady. Sandra had become part of our rhythm. Not all at once. She never forced herself in. But she started with dinner once a week, then school pickup on Thursdays, then helping Lena build a garden in the backyard. Because, as Sandra put it, nothing heals like dirt under your nails. She was just there when it mattered. I'd wake up some mornings and find the dishwasher already emptied, coffee brewed, Lena's lunch packed with a post-it note stuck to the apple. Don't forget, you're amazing. As she never overstepped. She never tried to replace anything or anyone. She just filled in the quiet with kindness. And Lena, she started shining again. Her laugh came back. Her appetite. Her terrible knock-knock jokes. She started wearing color again. Bright socks, sparkly barretties, painted nails that changed every other day. She'd sit on the porch with Sandra, her head on her shoulder, asking questions about grown-up things like, what makes a person stay? Or do people stop loving each other because they want to or because they get tired? Sandra always answered the same way. Love's not about keeping score. It's about showing up every day. I got promoted in March. Regional logistics manager. Better hours, better pay. It felt surreal. Signing the offer letter. I stood in the office alone after everyone else had left, staring out the window, letting the reality sink in. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building again. We paid off the loan by summer. Sandra helped me repaint the living room, something light, fresh. Lena picked the color cloud milk. I had no idea what that meant, but it worked. The house didn't feel like a memory anymore. It felt like a future. One evening, we were all in the kitchen, me drying dishes, Sandra flipping through a recipe book, and Lena perched on the counter, swinging her legs. You know, Lena said, grinning. I think we should get a dog. Sandra looked up. A dog, huh? That's a big commitment. Lena shrugged. So, you both already committed to me. I think I'm harder than a golden retriever. We laughed. A real unforced laugh that didn't come from covering pain. Later that night, after Lena went to bed, Sandra and I sat outside, just the two of us. The porch light cast a soft circle around us. The air smelled like cut grass and hope. You ever think you'd be here? She asked. I took a sip of tea and looked at her. The way her eyes crinkled when she smiled, the quiet patience in her every gesture. No, I admitted. Not even close. She nodded. You did the hard part. You stayed open even when you were bleeding. I almost didn't, I said. But then there you were with Stu. She laughed. Hey, food saves lives. I reached out gently, taking her hand. She didn't pull away. And in that small, quiet moment, I realized something. The family I thought I'd lost didn't disappear. It just found a new shape. It was a Saturday morning. One of those quiet ones where the sun slips in through the kitchen blinds just right. And even the toast popping feels like background music. Lena was sprawled out at the table coloring a poster for school, humming to herself. Sandra was humming along, flipping pancakes. My phone buzzed. Mom, cell. I stared at it for a second, thumb hovering. Sandra looked over, eyes gentle. You okay? I nodded. Yeah, just haven't heard from her in a while. I stepped onto the porch to answer. Hey, Mom. Her voice was rushed, slightly breathless. Ethan, thank God. I was hoping you'd pick up. A pause. What's going on? Well, she sighed like she'd already played out this call 100 times in her head. It's your brother and Tessa there. Well, they're staying here now. I didn't say anything. They've fallen on some hard times, she continued. Money's tight and well, Tessa's pregnant. Silence. They're living in your old room. The baby's due in a few months. We're trying, but it's cramped and Caleb's barely working. It's been hard, Ethan. I looked out at the lawn at Lena's bike tipped over in the grass at the window where Sandra was, smiling at something Lena just said. Mom's voice softened like she thought I might be about to crack. They're struggling. I just thought maybe you could help. Help how? I asked. I don't know. Bring groceries. Loan something. Caleb's trying. But no, he's not. I cut in. He never did. Ethan, be fair. Fair. I laughed bitter and quiet. You called me for help for them. Not once have you asked if I needed anything. A pause. They're family, she said weakly. No, I said, my voice like a locked door. They were. You made your choice the night you stood in that living room and said Caleb deserved love, even if it was mine. You can't stay angry forever, she whispered. I'm not angry. I said not anymore. Then why are you being like this? I stared at the neighborhood, at the house I'd built, at the life I'd fought for. Because it's not my concern anymore. I ended the call before she could respond. Not 5 minutes later, another call. Tessa. I didn't hesitate. Blocked. Then I blocked Caleb's number too. One by one. Clean. Final. I walked back into the house, setting the phone face down on the counter. Sandra looked up. Everything all right? I nodded. Yeah. Just some old noise trying to find a new door. She smiled softly, handed me a plate. Well, this door's closed. Lena held up her poster proudly. Dad, look. I drew us with capes. You and me and Sandra. Team super normal. I laughed, heart catching in my throat. Perfect. That's all I ever wanted to be. And in that moment, I realized something. Justice isn't about revenge. It's about indifference. About deciding that certain things no longer deserve a single inch of space in your life. And as I sat down at the table, wrapped in the warm smell of pancakes and permanent people, I knew I was done with the past, and the past was done with me. It was a Tuesday night, just after 7 o'clock. Rain tapped the windows in soft patterns like the house was wrapped in a blanket. The three of us were gathered at the dinner table, just leftovers and lemonade. Nothing special, but the air felt warm. Hull. Sandra was sitting across from me, her hair tied up, sleeves rolled. Lena was to my left, stabbing a meatball with more dramatic flair than necessary. So Lena said completely unprompted, when Sandra getting that ring? Dad? Sandra choked on her water. I blinked. What? Lena leaned back in her chair with a smirk that could melt glaciers. You heard him. Sweets, I said, trying not to laugh. Where did that come from? She shrugged. All innocence. You already act married.